The other thing that we're dealing with here is the assumption is that this framework will be a sort of a standalone thing, however it sort of eventually manifests itself, and that was our initial intention. However, we have to admit that we had some initial scepticism, given the nature of the way that we teach this stuff, which is very much interactive. So, as Carolyn quite put it, what we're going to try and capture is that sort of interactiveness that takes place in a typical classroom situation, and be able to put it online, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. But we've had some thoughts as to the possibility of being able to provide feedback through maybe again an online social media platform, and we have done some experiments in this field, and certainly the feedback is encouraging. Students, as I say, will because it's such a radically different way of working for many of them. Initially, they want help. They say, well, am I doing the right thing? Is this what you want, etc. And they'll have many questions. So we have to think about overcoming that bit of a gap, and we are playing with the idea that if this is available as an online mode, that someone halfway around the world might take this and you apply it to an issue, that we build a mechanism in for them to be able to at least share their ideas if they wish, and maybe build a community of people that might want to interact. So that's just something else that's sort of part of the mix. But to date, it has been very encouraging, and certainly now that Carolyn and Anthony and the team have put this thing together, we're keen to really begin the formal trials and to see how it all starts to shape up.
Just in finishing, I want to say that going through this exercise has been really valuable for our own students, and for students that you would expect would have a creativity aspect to their courses. We've done workshops in architecture and in third year architecture, and students come to us and say, well, that was fantastic, we should have had this in first year or in the first weeks of our course. But also in our own courses where these processes are embedded, and students as well as that go and do a course, for instance, in creative idea generation for designers, for them to be aware of the processes and become much more conscious of the process and be able to label the processes that we go through embedded into the course. Very simple things like generating a wide range of diverse ideas, and then refining some of those ideas and seeing what's possible, those kind of processes. But to be able to label them and identify them in our own students has been a very valuable a process, and reinforces those kind of things, that you need to be aware of what you're doing. Even though we try and model it extensively, the awareness and the ability to label it has been seen as really important.
Yeah, we use the term thinking about the thinking, and we very much encourage the students to provide ongoing discussion, ongoing feedback, ongoing reflection about what they're actually doing. And Stuart's right, it's sometimes you can sort of go through the motions, and a lot of our students
and
model the behaviour. A lot of our students, sort of in a sense might do this instinctively, because we tend to get students that are maybe more creative. But it's interesting when you actually get them to think about the thinking, how they gain a deeper understanding of what it is that they're actually doing. So lots of interesting things here, and we're actually looking quite forward to this progressing and seeing how it pans out. Okay.
Ask if there's any questions.
Any questions? Again, I hope that hasn't been a bit too overbearing.
No, it's just been bearing.
No, we're all still there.
Actually, the biggest question I have is given the online nature of this framework, what is the best way to encourage students to share their thoughts, ideas, and comments?
Yes, did you hear that, Stuart?
No.
Okay. We've been using a Facebook platform. It's interesting because the students don't use the formal university Moodles, etc. And we've had a lot of success. We've got a site that we're running called Unearthing Ideas, and students do interact with it, and we get quite a good participation and quite a good response. So and it's their territory too, which I think also helps. I mean, I know that there are other issues with Facebook, but we're looking at maybe how we can develop a version of this. But the feedback component is certainly very, very helpful. Hope that helps.
Well, it's not only feedback from us, but it's feedback from other people
Well,
who are
their
going through the
peers,
same process, and their
peers, and
sharing ideas.
And we get comments from people outside of the university, which is rather interesting.
One of the things about creativity too is to get a diverse number of responses for it, not to try and be too private about it, but to be too secret about your creativity and your ideas. You know, it's becoming evident that collaboration, community-based, interactivity, feedback, all those things are really important in first examining the issue, and second in coming up with diverse ideas for it. So sharing is really important.
Yeah, sharing is definitely important. Now, in earlier classes I've taken regarding creativity,
Is Denise still on?
writing course,
She's still there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, go on.
we spent quite a bit of time working with concepts like free writing and mind mapping and things like that. Are those integrated into this material, or plan to be integrated?
Yes, they are integrated. They're I think we said it earlier, particularly in things like examining the issue, but also in coming up with ideas, you know, and because they encourage diversity, they encourage challenging things, they encourage coming up with as wide a range of possibilities. I don't know if you ever read a paper by a guy called Charles Dillnot, talks about design as the science of uncertainty, because the solutions are not verifiable by repetition of the scientific experiment, if you like, but still need to be validated. So it's about design is the opposite from finding a single truth. It's trying to find, you know, as wide a range of possibilities as you can. So certainly all those techniques, and there's bits and pieces, other bits and pieces. We use Scamper, you know, going through an actual algorithm of processes and things like that, just to build up people's confidence. Does that answer your question, Charles?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.